Very dearest, beloved, divine friends, family, brothers and sisters, your friend, your brother, me, Haji, Dr. Roshan Khan, in the raw, Orcades Guyana Free Media. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, but I have in me the newspaper of December 2nd, the Kaichor News, and the Freddie Kissoon's column. And his topic for Thursday, December 2nd, recording today, Friday, December 3rd, Indian lives matter. History cannot ignore Vishnu Prasad. Now, I haven't read the article because I don't usually like to prejudice my thought. But I think he's referring to Vishnu Prasad and his qualification and his recognition for CEO of the Guyana Elections Commission. I must make it onset on the spot. I am a supporter of Vishnu Prasad. Mr. Vishnu Prasad, who acted in the role of CEO, DCU, and was public relations officer, or knows Guyana, understands the topography of the land, and I think he is the best person qualified. And I think the other gentleman from Jamaica is aptly qualified to be number two, to understudy number one, Vishnu Prasad, to take control in the future elections. And so he could also act in the absence of Vishnu Prasad going on leave. And what he's saying, what I have an issue with is that Indian lives matter. And I'm one who don't believe, as a Muslim, as a Guyanese, as a commissioner of the Ethnic Relations Commission, as a former commissioner of the National Commission of Law and Order, as a former director of the Guyana Responsible Parenthood Association, and director of so many, and commissioners of so many institutions in this country, and as an ambassador of peace of the Universal Peace Federation, as national chairman of the Universal Peace Federation, I can't have anything to do with racism. And I don't believe in racism. My religion does not believe in racism, nor does Sanatan Dharma or Hinduism, nor does Christianity or Judaism. Anything of religion that is partisan to race is a problem. And I have a problem with racist people, but I don't think, and I know for a fact that Freddie Kissoon is not racist. He's not racist. He's sometimes called a racist for Africans. I'm also been called a racist for Africans in the past, for defending Africans in certain situations. But I will always stand for what is right. Now, I'm not quarreling with Freddie. Indian lives matter, but it gives a connotation as if Vishnu has to get the job. We will go into it to see what he's really trying to say. But not because he's an Indian. It must be because he's competent for the job. This is what I truly believe in as a Guyanese citizen and a lover of all peoples, of religions and ethnicities. So let's go in to see what he's talking about. When I read pieces by some African Guyanese referring to the relevance of Black Lives Matter or BLM to Guyana, I know it was propagandistic line that Indian rights activists should contrast. He believed in, well, Indians should do the same thing in Guyana. But I don't believe we have a case in Guyana where Africans are being targeted or where Indians are being targeted in particular, except for when election time comes and a few Lilliputians and true haters may bring in some kind of a racism. But I truly believe in Black Lives Matter in the United States of America, not by constitution, not by the power of true governance and leadership, but by certain elements in certain areas, in certain states where black people are indeed being targeted, and youths and people have been killed and jailed wrongfully just because they're black. So in that case, I support Black Lives Matter in the United States, but I don't see that in Guyana. We don't need to go in this area, but he's saying he believes that the Indians should use it for propagandistic reasons to highlight their problems, so to say. So I go on. These African Guyanese commentators were pronouncing on a sociological situation that obfuscates the real fact, getting away from what is real, making excuses. Indian lives do matter in Guyana, according to him. But I don't see where it contrasts with the appointment of Vishnu Prasad. I think there are certain times when Indian lives does matter, during election times and certain particular times when Indians are being targeted. And like what is being done by certain elements like Mark Benchcup, especially Rickford Burke and David Hines, sitting comfortable in the United States of America, encouraging hate and trauma and division of our peoples. But in Guyana, we don't hear the People's National Congress, we don't hear the PPPC, we don't even hear that thing they call the AFC, that thing that is wiped out, right? Calling for division. Anybody who calls for that is dangerous for Guyana. We are one people, one nation, one destiny in this country. We are Guyanese. Regardless of whether you're Indian or African or Chinese or Amerindian, we must always look out for each other's back. This is what I believe in. So the likes of Rickford Burke and David Hines and Mark Benchcup and their few Lilliputians and the knockabouters in the United States looking for some form of relevance in the world and in Guyana wanting to destroy this country and divide our country, they need to be charged for treason and to be extradited to Guyana for treason and have their head exit their body. Hang them according to law of Guyana. Treason for Rickford Burke. Friends and family, ladies and gentlemen. And keep on lobbying the United States government. Lobbying to see what they are doing, to study them, to follow them, to put people to even incriminate them. Weapons and guns offers to sell to them. So they can be arrested and sentenced to 20 or 30 years in the United States and fixed for good. Or charge them and then let's work to extradite them. We now got the evidence, you know. It is in Facebook there going around. I hope I save it and some of you save it quickly because we'll need those guys to be arrested, to be charged and extradited to Guyana. Mr. Anil Nandalal, please be studying this as Attorney General and let's move and get Rickford Burke and his set of henchmen back to Guyana or use the Israeli technique. They got a technique of going to visit and nicely inviting them to volunteer on a special private trip to Guyana on an express jet. We can do that and get them back here in Guyana. Israeli style, Mossad style. Back to the article. Indian lives did not matter for Ronald Waddell. Okay, he's putting out his arguments. So with Ronald Waddell, we know he was a top-notch racist. During the raging fires of Mo Fire, Slow Fire, he urged Indian Guyanese who voted for the PNC to seek physical safety from PNC supporters by heading, he didn't have this, but by heading to Congress Place. So in this case, he's speaking right. Waddell was calling on people to head to Congress Place, Indians who voted for the PNC. Because PNC is under attack by but the Indo-Guyanese are under attack by certain PNC and Afro-Guyanese that he was inciting to attack Indians. Years past, I remember those days. Slow fire, more fire. Back to the article. Some people have described Waddell as a non-violent man. But I saw him lighting fire in the street when they were protesting. When the police in black clothes were attacking some of them and dealing with them, I actually saw him with my eyes, and I swear to God that he was lighting some fire in the middle of the road. What he was doing, lighting a fire in the middle of the road, I don't know. But he was lighting a fire on something in the middle of a road, right? And I was right in Regent Street watching it. Obviously, they do not know what Waddell did in Buxton during the gory violence there between 2002 and 2006. From Mo Fire, Slow Fire, from 1997 to the Buxton Mayhem, right up to September 2020 in Cotton Tree in Region 5, and we know who else went there. Mr. You-know-who, the warlord, of the fame, we have nothing to apologize for, he said to his supporters. We have nothing to apologize for. We have no apologies to make. That's the man. And he went there and he was inciting violence to the backyard bully. There were instances when Indian Guyanese were mercilessly and relentlessly harmed and killed. But no Indian activist has invented the slogan, Indian Lives Matter. Well, fine. I get his point. Also in Burmese, in 2020, when it was obvious that President Dr. Irfan Ali won the elections, and the PPPC, when Indians were being raped, young ladies, women were being beaten, old Indian women and young were being filled up, their bags stolen, their trucks burnt, their cars burnt, punching in the face, kicking, and more rapes and rapes. We know the one man who was behind that, who was encouraging it smartly, and he sent the ring on television there, and a lawyer who can speak too well to encourage the people and give them ideas to show that it was an Indian thing to attack these two boys, when now we know, and they're all bloody quiet, that it was their own family and people of their own environment, many of them involved in spiritual obeah work, were involved in all of this. Now the facts are coming out, everybody quiet, their mouth shut. Two of his own relatives got charged for murder too. So this is a situation, but the man went up there, and when he was getting into trouble, because I encouraged the Indians to form their defensive groups in their community after their homes and their daughters were being raped and beaten and slaughtered, but to protect themselves only with a baton and sticks, the warlord tried to make an issue out of it to get the pressure off his ugly face and his ugly backbone. Back to the article. No Indian used the idea of Indian lives matter. We still don't. We are not a people like that. We usually are not a warish people. But maybe they're making them that way. This is why I had said, do not use violence. Do not use funny instruments. Do not only have batons and sticks and stay in your yard. Protect the minorities in your communities. Do not become aggressors. Back to the article. Despite this pattern of consistent violence against Indians, some people began to talk about Black Lives Matter in Guyana as if Indian lives did not matter. Words of Fred Kissel. In the unfolding of things, there are claims being made of PNC surrogates on their meta pages that African Guyanese are being discriminated against. There is no intention of anti-Indian violence since 1997. The list is almost inexhaustible. Well, we know they keep on saying, no matter what you do, no matter what it's never enough. Nobody wants to work, we must give them free money, and so on. Indians too, not only the Afro-Guyanese guys, them want free money and free things. And so they will scream discrimination. They don't want to sacrifice. Both sides. And that's the thing about me. I speak the truth. I have no racism in me. And I prefer to die, ladies and gentlemen, than to be racial against my own Guyanese. I have relatives, man, who are Africans. I have grandchildren who are mixed. So no, I can't tolerate that. None of us should tolerate it, because we all in Guyana, almost every Guyanese, African and Indians, we have mixed relatives. Young man, do you have mixed relatives?
Yes, sir.
Good. I have another coordinator out there. She's mixed herself. So we must not have racism in this country. One might be African or Indian, but we will all have some Africans marry or mixed or blended somewhere in Guyana. Come on, Guyanese, behave yourselves. Live in love and joy and harmony and protect each other. And I move on. No one can tell me about Indian Lives Matter. I investigated the mayhem in Buxton, Freddie Kissoon Sage. From 2002 to 2006, it was an orgy of violence directed against Indian Guyanese because the government was seen as Indianized by that set of people who were trying to create mayhem. At that time, a certain guy who was on television, a hideous man, had someone who escaped, I think it was 2005, with a set of criminals from the jail and was holding up an AK-47. And this man was working with Channel 28 at that time, Vera Television, but quietly staying away not to expose Channel 28, but put it on the 28 News, that he is there, he wants to liberate African people, and we know who the man was behind it. The one who thinks he's a reporter and he's a man of some intelligence, but totally hideous and has lost all kind of respectability and decency in Guyana. Decent people in Guyana are people who call for goodwill, love, joy, harmony, forgiveness, working together. That is the decent people, not the idiots who are trying to create mayhem and hate in Guyana. There is no mention of 42,000 sugar workers, their families and relatives who were driven into the bread line. This activist picketed against the increase in electricity rate in Linden in 2012. Freddie Kissoon said he picketed with the Afro-Guyanese in Linden because they wanted free electricity, getting mostly free electricity. This activist protested for 1 year outside Parliament in a grassroots movement we called People's Parliament. I remember that. When 3 protesters were killed in the protest, the People's Parliament had as its chief organizer an Indian woman named Sharlina Nagir, who was mostly, I know, on the defense of alcohol and was trying to demolish the PPP, and suddenly the lady disappeared, having been proven an alcoholic and a liar. Now we go back to the article. Those are my points. Where were the voices to support the support of Indian lives with 42,000 families connected to the sugar industries were turned asunder, says Freddie Kissoon. Many suicides occurred in the sugar belt after the closure of the sugar estates by the David Granger government, the APNU or the PNC, and also, yes, Moses Nakamutu and Ranjatan, who were the main skulldugglers in the secret that they were keeping, even though they had votes and got into government because of those Indian votes in the upper quarantine, whose lives were shattered by the signing of a pen in one moment of breath. 42,000 lives, and many people committed suicide and suffered from depression. Women were forced into prostitution to feed their families. There were mass starvation. The PPPC went on a campaign to collect food and contributions and donations to feed the people. Thank you. The government of Guyana at that time, led by David Granger and Moses Nagamutu, and Camarade Ranjatan, did nothing to give the people some kind of a relief, not even a compensation for their work, for their service, so they could survive and do some other piece of land. But hypocritically, when the elections came in 2020, when that elections came, ladies and gentlemen, and they were trying to win, they said, we will, President Granger, former, said, oh, we will give you lands, those sugar workers who were displaced. What is that? A lie. A political lie by Moses Nagamutu and Ranjatan and Mr. David Granger. We will give you land now when you're about to go to elections. I spoke against it. Friends and families, ladies and gentlemen. There were no voices from civil society. There were no voices from the dozens of women rights groups we have here. Why was this so? Because Indian lives do not matter, according to Freddie Kissoon. You know, I really don't like this, but according to what he's saying, he seems to be right here now. I have to kind of concur with him. For a deputy chief election officer to remove DCEO Roxanne Myers. Ms. Myers contested the post against the incumbent, Vishnu Prasad. He lost because then Chairman James Patterson voted with the 3 PNC commissioners to replace Mr. Prasad. The ousted DCEO filed a case of racial discrimination with the Ethnic Relations Commission and won. He was never recalled though, and I must tell you, I was a commissioner at that time. And one particular one who is a known racist, I'm ashamed to say, in the Elections Commission, we have 2 other half racists in there working with him who were trying to push things otherwise. But eventually, democracy prevailed, and Vishnu Prasad won the case based on racism. Also, there were the human resource officer who were not cooperated. There was the CEO who was not cooperating. There was the CEO who was not cooperating and frustrating the works. And as for the chairman, Patterson at that time, worse than all, he was politically handpicked. He was politically handpicked by former President David Arthur Granger. The ERC ruled in two things, one of which is shocking, and for which Mr. Patterson should have been brought before the ERC. The ERC concluded that on both experience and qualifications, Mr. Persaud was more suited for the position than Myers. Remember I told you, we have one particular racist of hate of all races in Guyana, but more so of the Indians. So much so, and one day I'll come out public and speak who he is. Secondly, Patterson never interviewed Persaud, but gave him a poor scoring. So he had lied to everyone, including the ERC, ladies and gentlemen. And he misled us when he came one time for an interview. The ERC ruled in two things, one of which is shocking, and for which Mr. Patterson should have been brought before the ERC. The ERC concluded that on both experience and qualification, Mr. Persaud was more suited for the position than Myers. Secondly, Patterson never interviewed Persaud, but gave him a poor scoring, a repetition for emphasis. And when we were doing the count, we could have seen why. Because she would tell us, the observers, pick up your rubbish and leave. She was really very rude and pompous. I'm saying this openly. She was rude and pompous before over 200 and plus 240 observers internationally of the high social, political, former prime ministers, ambassadors from around the world. And she said, pick up your rubbish and leave. The pomposity of that woman, I can never forget, and the shame she brought, how I felt humiliated when she would say, pick up your rubbish and leave. You could have seen the racist hate. You could see the aim to steal an election. You could see the skullduggery and the acting and the tricks and the games and the calls coming. And you could have read some of their lips, what they were saying. And I move on. When the ERC inquired of this anomaly, Patterson said he arrived at this decision based on a document which he would supply to the ERC. The ERC did not receive it based on Commissioner Vincent Alexander's description of Persaud. He was sued for defamation of character, and Mr. Persaud won judgment. We have never seen it too, ladies and gentlemen. We asked for it, but we never got it. The society has been unfair to Persaud. His denial of his rights is life's unfairness, and has driven me in my existence on earth to fight against it. And that's why I love you, Freddie. I love you. I respect you, buddy, for that. I respect you for that. You stand for what is right. The society has been unfair to Persaud. His denial of his rights is life's unfairness that has driven me in my existence on earth to fight against it. That me means Freddie Kissoon. The Starbuck News has carried 3 editorials decrying the removal of Vincent Adams from the Environmental Protection Agency, even though Dr. Adams is one of the leaders of the main opposition, APNU AFC. But did they truly defend and stand for Vishnu Persaud? But they were up against the government for getting rid of Vincent Adams, who was politically appointed to the position, ladies and gentlemen, of the Environment Protection Agency. The Guyana Human Rights Association never uttered a word about Persaud. I'm wondering, is the Guyana Human Rights Association really anti-decency, pro-criminal, pro-murder, pro-jailed individuals? Is it for creating hate and so on? And who are financing them? Where is this money coming from? We have to find out. Wrongs must be righted. People who have been denied their rights must be given their day, says Freddie Kissoon, and I concur. I know all my life about the pain of having your rights trampled on, and he was wrongly trampled. His wife also was dismissed wrongfully from a major appointment if they go invest. I was very hurt for that. And I'm calling upon the government to compensate them and reappoint and so on that wife of his, that amazing lady of science and caliber and communication and skill. As the dialectics roll on and social progress moves towards greater forms of justice, wrongs must be righted. I concur again. Cruel violations against innocent humans should have no statute of limitation, right? The laws need to be changed. People must have their day in court. They must have their day in front of natural law. They must have their day when human conscience rules over society. Vishnu Prasad must have his day. Let me read that back. So beautiful, Freddie. And ladies and gentlemen, cruel violations against innocent humans should have no statute of limitation. People must have their day in court. They must have their day in front of natural law. They must have their day when human conscience rules over society. Vishnu Prasad must have his day. Thank you, Freddie. A beautiful piece of article. One could misunderstand or misconstrue from what you're saying. On top, in the end, I agree and I concur, but I, like you, am non-racist. I'm lover of humanity, of all peoples, but I hate political skulldugger's and those who will try to divide and to disseminate us and divide our country. Your friend, your brother, me, Haji, Dr. Roshan in the raw. Say thank you and farewell, friends.